What were you expecting when you signed on to this trip?
I didn't really know what to expect when I signed on to this trip. I guess I expected to have an experience unlike one I'd ever had. I expected to come back changed in some way, and I didn't know how.
Do you feel like that expectation was met? When we started really getting the ball rolling for this week, nothing felt like it was coming together, and it was really up until about 3 weeks before we had to leave that we finally bought the tickets. We said, okay, we don't know if this is going to work, we don't know if everything's going to come together, we're just going to go. And we didn't actually know that the entire project would work, even when we landed here in Uganda.
The purpose of our trip, really, and the process in Ascendi was to help some children who have been arrested and charged with various crimes and are being held on remand in a remand home, and to help them get their cases developed and heard so that they can either be released or so that they can at least receive their sentence and begin to serve it.
They were not old enough to be housed in the regular jails with the adults. So instead, in Uganda, children who are awaiting trial are put into what are called remand homes. And these remand homes house the children until they have an opportunity to have a hearing before a court to determine whether or not there's enough evidence to even proceed against them or whether they should be released. No meetings with an attorney, with no meetings with the court, just waiting for someone to do something.
This remand home is not something you or I would refer to as a home. It's an old one-room stone building with no windows and no electricity and no running water, and again, just deplorable conditions that these kids are living in.
What we saw inside was even more depressing. There was 18 boys, but about 12 mats. When I say mats, little foam pads with a blanket over the top of them, tattered, dirty, no light, no electricity. Boys were sitting on their foam pads, and the judge told them that we were here to talk to them about their cases. The judge then asked, did any of them speak English? There were 2.
And on the first day going up, there's a little bit of hesitancy, there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of just curiosity, not really knowing why these Mzungus were coming into the remand home in Hunga, and what we were doing there, and what we really wanted, and what our goal was.
We undertook an extensive process of going out, meeting the kids, interviewing the kids, getting their stories, getting their version of events. We spent a lot of time identifying and tracking down witnesses, bringing them to the hotel to be able to interview them, to try to further develop the facts of the case.
By the end of the first day and really into the middle of the second, everyone was participating, everyone was interested, everyone was realizing that we were there to help. So that was a great thing.
And decided that the best approach would be to have Jay and Ray stay behind with John and start interviewing witnesses and reviewing the court files as they came in from the neighboring areas.
Members of the team spent a lot of time in the courthouse and in the police station reviewing case files and just trying to learn whatever we could about the case and develop as best we could a summary brief for each of the children to provide to the judge and to a legal aid attorney who would be representing those children.
We learned that several of the boys were accused of murder, several of aggravated defilement, which is their term for statutory rape. Others were accused of theft. Others were accused, there's another accused of abduction.
We met some remarkable children. Two of the children there are brothers, Henry and Joseph. They both served as translators for us as we were doing the interviews. We didn't have an official translator, but Henry speaks 4 languages and understands 7.
And found out that he was accused of murder in a factual circumstance that we later were able to determine could not possibly have happened, in that he was at a different location during the time the murder happened. Prior
to being arrested, were in a good school, doing really well on scholarships, promising, bright kids. And in this case, not in all the cases, in this case it was clear from the file that they were absolutely wrongfully charged with a crime. And they had been in this facility for almost 2 years. Our hope is that through our work, that Henry and Joseph will be able to be released and return to school, get educated, and frankly, I think have the capability of becoming real leaders in this country.
There was a girl, Netakunda Scovia, who was accused of murder. She had had a child, and so she was kicked out of her uncle's house where she lived. Her parents were deceased. She'd been living with her uncle. And so she moved in with her grandmother, who didn't particularly like her and who was an alcoholic. The baby got sick within the first 2 weeks of being born. Scovia asked her grandmother for some money to take the baby to the hospital. The grandmother told her that the baby was going to be fine, this is normal, don't worry about it. Shortly thereafter, when the grandmother was out drinking, the baby died. Scovia's not educated. She doesn't know what to do. And so Scovia wrapped the baby in a blanket and brought it out into the bush and left it there. When the grandmother returned, the baby was gone. Scovia was still there. A couple days later, the baby was found, actually being eaten by a dog. Scovia was arrested on the testimony of her grandmother. She's now been in there over a year, waiting trial. The only evidence against her is what her grandmother said, saying that the baby was alive when she left and was dead when she returned, and therefore Scovia murdered the baby.
It was basically trial prepping 22 cases in 3.5 days with limited information, limited resources, and a language barrier often.
Had an opportunity on Friday to present the judge who was going to be hearing their cases with the briefs we had prepared.
I remember one of the kids said to us, "Thank you for what you're doing. I hope you can help, but even if you can't help my case, thank you for just coming and seeing us."
The opportunity to, in some small way, reach out to people who don't have anybody to help them, to give them a voice, give them an opportunity to move forward with their life, was something that I will encourage everybody that I can to participate in.
And so I feel like for the first time on this trip, I have used what I have been given in a way that brought joy to God. Scripture says that religion that is pleasing to God is helping widows and orphans. And so I do feel like for the first time I practiced my religion in a way that was pleasing to God.
You can't do everything, you can't fix everything, but you can't do nothing. It's just not possible to do nothing. So what I would say is find an opportunity to serve. It changes their lives, but it changes your soul.
It hit me that I had met God. I met God in Masindi, Uganda. In some ways, for the first time in my life. I've always known about God, and I've my whole life believed in God, and have tried to trust and live a life of faith. But realized I'd never really known God. And sitting in the shade of that tree, talking to those kids, was really looking need in the face, eye to eye, shaking its hand, hearing its story, and trying to help. And the disciples asked Jesus, when did we see you thirsty and give you drink? And when did we see you hungry and give you food? We don't remember doing that. And Jesus said, when you did it for the least of these. And these are the least of these. And I realized about halfway through this trip that the face of those kids was the face of God. He's there. And so for me, this trip was really meeting God. And that's what I'll take away.